welcome. We bring you this special show from T-Hub, India's largest incubator for startups here in Hyderabad. We are here to discuss about hopes and expectations from the Union Interim Budget. Of course, it's a vote on account, elections to come up very shortly. But can this budget give some direction so that the sustained growth that we are hoping for, dreaming for, aspiring for can happen? I'm going to go across first to the Chief Executive Officer of the T-Hub. The last year doesn't seem to have been too good. Investment is down, number of startups is down. Is this something that is temporary, something has happened, or you expect that the Union Finance Minister will be able to do something to be able to reverse this?
So thank you, Uma, for having me on the show. First of all, I think last year was a dip, and these are somewhat cyclical. But I think, the startup ecosystem is here to stay with 116,000 plus startups. We're already the third largest ecosystem in the world. And given what is happening today across multiple sectors, I think there's a lot of room for growth.
The Prime Minister has of course said that startups are the fulcrum around which future India is going to grow, and the Finance Minister too speaks about them as the engines of growth. But did you see enough happening so far? We say Startup India Fund is something that we all celebrate. Any one of you wants to respond to that?
Yeah. I'm Swami, founder and CEO of SmartAil. Yes, the funds are there. There are many schemes that are actually available, but the process that has been actually defined for these kind of funds is something that takes a very long time especially for startups. So the process needs to be redefined or improved to an extent where we are able to access these funds at a faster pace.
I think this time the budget should also focus on the support mechanisms like your organizations, research institutes that are actually helping these startups to leverage those funds, right? So far it's been directly incentives or funds for the startups. Maybe certain support mechanisms to support these startups get quicker access would be something that we should focus.
My name is Aditya and I'm the founder and CEO of an Agritech company called Lab to Land. Now Lab to Land, we've been coming up with a lot of R&D based, biologicals and agri inputs. Coming to the fund side of things, the government had actually allocated a very specific R&D fund for agri companies. But if you look at the fund size, right, the total allocation was for about 70 odd crores, and that was spread between 1,138 startups. And if you look at the average cost of a molecule to be registered in the country, it costs about $500,000 in terms of university trials. And companies are actually burning about $100 to $120 million in coming up with a new molecule. Now with that kind of a spend versus registration ratio that you have, we would require a lot more support both in terms of legal framework and in terms of the funding assistance for us to come up with new age molecules that could fix the production issues that we have.
So Agritech is something that you spoke about, and Mr. MSR was mentioning about drones, and they are also going to be used now, I guess, as drone DDs who are going to be trained, who are all being trained actually to become pilots and getting certification and going to be using nano fertilizers, hopefully to take this journey forward of technology in agriculture. Where are you from and what did you want to say?
I'm Amol. I'm mentor at NASCOM Deep Tech Lab, and we are focusing on increasing deep tech patient capital for deep tech startups. So one of my asks is streamline capital gains for both domestic as well as international funds, so that they can come in easily, have a flat low rate for all long-term capital, listed or unlisted. Second thing is maybe some ease of business mechanisms, abolishing angel tax completely for deep tech startups, or input costs, a lot of the research startups have inputs which come from abroad, like chemical reagents and so on. So streamline the customs duties and the hassles around getting them.
I have here also a group of investors. Investment going down, that's become a big worry now. Number of investors and the volume as well. What's going wrong and what can be done to change that?
I am Vikrant. I represent Succeed Innovation Fund, early stage investment fund. So, if you see from the few lenses, so if I talk about fund, there are, in previous budgets we have had a distinction about how carried interest is defined, right? So from a income versus capital gain, if we could bring it back to capital gain, and bring it at parity with the global phenomena, that would be helpful. In Gift City, we are in any case calling it a capital gain. Second is on the similar line, the Gift City structure that we have created in IFSC regulation, if we can not just restrict it to one state, and if we could make it in 4 or 5 other states, bring the SEZ structure, that would encourage, ease of capital flowing in from foreign jurisdiction also. And from a long-term perspective, pension funds and insurance funds who have a long horizon for managing capital of people, some portion of that could also start to flow in AIFs, and that could be encouraged with easy policies for them. And considering the investment in startup is also considered as high-risk investment, if investors could also be incentivized by creating a structure in the form of tax rebates, that would also be considered as a nation-building exercise. So few considerations could be taken. There is a scheme in the UK which encourages seed investments by investors, and a certain portion of that investment also goes tax-free. I'm sure we could learn from that also. Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Srikanth. I represent Pavestone Venture Capital. We invest into enterprise technology companies, early growth stage companies. From my perspective, if you look at the private equity industry, it's grown to almost 6 lakh crores of capital under management today. And the expectation is that given the focus on startups, it should continue to grow. And to facilitate that, I believe there are 2 kinds of facilitations that need to be provided by the finance ministry. The first is around, as many people mentioned, around uniform taxation for both listed and unlisted securities that will attract more of the HNI money into the startup market, into the riskier pool that is today available for startup investments. The second centers around taking a firm and conclusive call on investment into AIFs by large institutions, financial institutions. The recent RBI circular begs to be reconsidered into a different shape and form in our view, as well as the insurance and pension funds need to be available for investments into AIF, and through those eventually investing into the startups. From the founders and the startup perspective, I believe one of the biggest decisions to be taken is around ESOPs and making sure that there is single taxation at the point of sale of shares.
Well, you are someone who is in healthcare and using tech for healthcare. Is the government doing enough in terms of facilitating the exploitation of that kind of knowledge or wealth, the talent pool that's coming in?
I think the government has specific emphasis towards medical devices right now with the medical device draft regulation bill that's come in. There are a couple of areas of improvement that still need to be looked into. Number one is that the inverted duty structure for medical devices still persists. So in some cases, the cost of raw materials increases because the duty structure of imported raw materials is higher than the finished goods. So, that's something that needs to be looked into, especially when we are trying to, encourage more domestic production. I think that'll be helpful. Second area I think that the government needs to look into is especially a lot of Indian medtech companies, medical device companies are aspiring to access global markets, and given healthcare is a very regulated market across the world, and a lot of regulations revolve around US FDA, CE mark. I think that if there is an emphasis on bringing our local regulations and standards like ICMed at par with, say, the global standards, it will help us transition to international markets much faster.
We would recommend that we should have a dedicated bank supported by government exclusively for startups like the Silicon Valley Bank, and basically it should help us in easing out FDA process, and also if it can actually automate the process of shares allocations through this platform, and lot of other financial services if it can offer, that will be fantastic. Right now it's a painful process. The current banking systems are built in such a way that they are for the personal stuff and other old systems. But current startups need a new financial institutions which has a lot of dedicated services we need. Right now that is missing. Dedicated bank is needed.
So that certainly sounds like an innovative thinking, but is the government beginning to do something like that if there is international experience with these kind of banking systems?
Hello everyone. My name is Arvind Kandula. I'm the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer at DevCare Solutions, privileged investor in T-Hub as well. So my recent experience as part of the FDI, I specifically call it out FDI, has been a little painful, to be very honest. And time and again, we have seen that access to capital is one of the throttle for startups. So we ended up spending about 8 weeks for the capital to reach from the US to the startup here, which is definitely painful. So my recommendation, my request as well would be some level of a framework that can be built by the ministry here, by the government and administration bodies that can allow FDIs. There are definitely a lot of investors out there with the required capital that I've seen. So definitely a framework would really help make the process very easy.
Hi, I'm Sandeep Bopana. I'm founder and CEO at ThinkWise Consulting. So I have one basic question. So what a startup needs? We need some tax cuts, some incentives. So you might say it is already in place in form of Startup India, but access to that is not streamlined in my belief. So I have a small example. So I myself have applied from some kind of incentives and tax cuts with the Startup of India, and it's been 3 months and it's still under the process. If the government could streamline that process, I think it would help a lot of startups like me.
Two things here. One, obviously talent must be there everywhere, wherever we're talking about entrepreneurship, innovation. Access to capital is a big challenge, and if we saw the recent ACER report, Annual Status of Education report, it would suggest that what we are doing with our youth is simply not good enough, that people who are in 14 to 18 are not able to read English sentences. Forget English, even the regional language, they were not able to read a class 2 sentences. Where is this huge mismatch? I mean, just the centers, big centers growing is not going to help India become that 5 trillion economy that we are talking about.
I'm Parvati Reddy. I'm executive director at an infrastructure company called NAR. I work closely with schools, government schools. We adopt government schools. So the disparity I could see sitting here at T-Hub and seeing the children in rural India who come barefoot, the uniform given as 1 meal and 3 uniforms a year with books, hardly can afford to come. I think thanks to the government now they have free bus that they can come, especially the girl children. Speaking at that, I think the government has to uplift the schools, allocate more funds to develop our schools where there are no toilets. We have given computers in some schools, but there's no computer room. The roof is falling away. So I think it's time India wakes up, and as you said, these are the children who are going to be tomorrow's leaders, or they could be innovators, they could be something. But if you're not taking care of them, if you're only looking at the cities, I think it's going to affect India in a longer run.
Innovators that we look for to become entrepreneurs and create those jobs. But even there, the number of jobs seem to be going down. Even the startup industry, job losses, valuation going down, etc. But what sector are you from?
Hi, my name is Nikhil. I run a company called Garrett Motors. We manufacture electric cycles and tricycles. To answer the question that you said, although a lot of jobs are being lost in startups, out of 4 jobs, every 3 jobs are given by startups. Coming to our ask, so I'll be very specific about our ask in our ecosystem. So in electric vehicle industry, although the adoption has gone up in the last few years, the challenge faced by our companies is majorly in the taxation, in the lines of when we import a lot of components that are not being made in India, we are forced to pay 18 to 20% and 28%, but we are asked to charge 5% from the customer. Now we would love if government eases out that kind of policies where taxation is reduced even on the import duties, that foster, because it's a chicken and egg problem. Like if we don't have a market to access, we can't make these components in India. Now when we are importing, we are being charged high. So I think there should be a relaxation in that direction.
Climate mitigation, climate resilience technologies, you're also in the sustainability field. Is the government doing enough, and what would you like to see there?
I think, hi, this is Akshay Deshpande, founder of SwitchEco. Sustainability just has become a buzzword now. And it's just been like the button that is there on the shirt underneath. You don't choose if it remains or not, but people still are going to buy those shirt. because those three buttons which are required are there. The basic components of tax, what we are talking about, and basic, everyone is talking about climate tech and everything. The tax components for sustainability products and non-sustainable products remains the same, and we still choose people to opt for sustainability on a higher price. Now these days sustainability has become a niche product. If at all government takes up some steps to reduce down on the tax component that is falling on products like bamboo, hemp, jute and all, I think that is where sustainability will be accessible and easily available in the market.
My name is Subramanyam. I'm a co-founder of Nirmala Innovations. We are into water sector. The one sector which touches all the each and every sustainability sector or other sector, even manufacturing sectors, is water. So if you take Agritech or any other tech which which is in the production industry, they all need water. But there is a clear lacking the dedication of funds to this specific sector, because if you take any other grants, even from the center also, they have a very little amount is being dedicated to the in terms of grant or a sustainability thing.
So
but if you can,
finance minister to do now?
so we are requesting in this budget. So if you could dedicate some amount of thing, especially to cater water industry, even for the startup sector or products which were working in the water. So it in terms create a sustainable future in terms of creating jobs, and also one of the industry in the sustainable sector really becomes sustainable.
This is Sunil. I'm the founder and CEO of IVA. So we are a health tech startup. So I have three specific asks here. Number one, around the innovation. So far, the banking system never understands IP or a patent as a tangible asset, unless you own factories or manufacturing facilities. But the biggest of the companies like Google are not grown on factories, but more on their innovation and intellectual properties. So we expect government to formulate strategies around adding tangible value on intellectual property / innovation. Second thing, since I come from medtech industry, and we are a 100% made in India product, us and a white label container from China faces same taxes in terms of medtech products. While India is pushing a lot for medtech products in the recent times, where they want to reduce majority number of imports from outside, it is also important that they support medtech companies / startups to have tax relaxation on the product, so that the same benefit can be given to the end consumer and it helps in circular economy. The third thing, as a founder, founders who are job creators and employees who are job seekers are all under the same tax slabs. That has to be changed. As a founder, we take a lot of risk.
We should be incentivized, or the prices for the sustainable products should come down. Also, on the other side, how we can ensure that the common man takes part in the growth of the startup ecosystem, right? How common man can invest in startups and the entire taxable income comes down. I think with that step, a lot of people...
Incentives for angel investors.
Exactly, yes. So I think for a common person like me, if the taxable income comes down basis my investment in startups, we can push more money in the startup ecosystem.
Corporates in listed space are making tons and tons of profits. What I recommend finance ministry is, if all the corporates are spending even 1% of their expenditure for usage of startups, and they get special incentive like 150% or 200%, I think that will encourage many of them to use the startup products in the company, and it will feed our startups much better.
The way we look at it is like there are 5 dimensions, for building this VC / startup ecosystem. I mean, there's market, there is thriving financial capital, there is human capital, there is a conducive environment of regulations, as well as the exits. I mean, that's how the VCs and the startups survive. If you look at it, I think from a financial capital perspective, Uma, you had brought up the point of what government has done in terms of initiating the process of fund of funds, right? I think as a trigger point, definitely that was very favorable, at least for the first time fund managers. But going forward, someone brought up this point. If you look at deep tech, is clearly missing and having a chasm, somewhere for a Series A, Series B funding. So definitely an allocation needs to go towards that side.
I mean, very proudly we say some 20 out of the 111 unicorns are women. What is happening there? Do you find that environment welcoming women, being able to do enough to take that step?
Hi, my name is Krishna Priya, founder of Starbuzz, and to answer your question, to be very frank, the environment is not that friendly for a woman to come up and build a startup and then scale it to a level of a unicorn. The primary reason, maybe from my point of view, is lack of or having many less leadership figures in that state of a startup, right? Or having very few people in that state where women can look up to and say ki, if they can do it, I can do it, sort of a thing. We have spoken about the R&D in agritech, in sustainability, in water, in all the fields. But one thing where we fail to focus is the amount of research and amount of time and the money that we put in developing a software. And how the banks and the government have little to no support in either in the form of grants or investment to develop a software. So maybe if government can do something in that, give us some grants or some banks that can give us some investment for development of software which they consider non-tangible.
My name is Ratnam. I represent Lab to Land, a company that is working in the field of agriculture to improve the productivity of the farmers. My recommendation to the finance minister for the upcoming budget was on 2 points. The first one was on the agri credit, which is a huge requirement at the farmer level. The access to agri credit in terms of the institutional agri credit. So currently there is about 20 lakh crores that is being disbursed. I think there is a need to increase that amount to minimum 25 lakhs to about 30 crores. The second recommendation that I wanted to talk about is on the R&D spend. There used to be a 200% rebate, what Aditya talked about a little while ago, until 2016-17, which allowed startups and the local companies to invest heavily on the R&D, which is a key requirement to bring out good solutions for the farmer. I think we should roll that back so that startups and the companies are able to invest more on the R&D, which is a key to bring out solution to the farmers.
On a policy level, how the government is going to get us more grants, more access to investment to our startups. Second is, again on the policy level, how the government is encouraging more of grassroots level entrepreneurship. Third would be how India can be one of the, it's the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, how more and more women entrepreneurs are coming forward and from job seekers to jobs creators, they can make it. These are 3 questions for the government from my side.
I'm Srinivas Taluka. I'm the Vice President at T-Hub. So I have a question to the government that in last 8 years at T-Hub, we have impacted close to 2,000 plus startups. So to amplify this number, my request to the government is to set up mini T-Hubs or T-Hubs in other cities, not just in major metro cities, but also in Tier 1 and Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. So that will help to amplify the number of impact what we can give it to the startups.
For women entrepreneurs, in terms of grants and other aspects that you have access to, the quantum is very less. Like you look at 5 lakh and 10 lakh, so pretty much nothing is, you can't get much out of it. So maybe a little more leverage there. And my other question is probably some backup or support for specific industries. Like I would like to talk about EdTech. Nobody spoke about EdTech here because something goes wrong and then there's a big hush, right? So probably these sectors need a little bit of support or, that's probably something the government can think about.
The policy of the government has changed drastically and they are moving towards the very structured form of investment in startups. So that is a very good measure by the government. Then when coming to the sustainable growth, that is one of the key focus areas of the government. So we have lot many startups in the sustainability space. It is very difficult for them to raise funding. I think our government should come up with a specific fund for the sustainable startups that will help them in the growth and development.
Lots of bright ideas. What else do you expect when there are innovators and the creators who are creating wealth for the country as well? Hope Nirmala Sitharaman and her team is certainly reasoning. In Hyderabad, with camera person Nagraju, Uma Sudhir, NDTV.